Dimp Digital Presents Idle Game Chat.
Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat. This is the weekly video games podcast where we give our impressions of the games that you can play today and react to the latest news from the wonderful and wacky world of video games. We're here every Monday on your favourite podcast app and YouTube absolutely free. I'm joined once again by the former Dimp Digital Gaming Quiz champion. It's Pac-Man himself. It's Tom Adcock. How's it going?
It's going good, mate. Thank you.
Good. Excellent. So we've got a bit of a games on the grill session here. Several games lined up to chat about. So we're not going to really deep dive into many of these. It's going to be sort of impressions, quick chat, and we'll move on to the next one. I think we've got 4 or 5 lined up for the guys, and we're going to be leading or headlining it with Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, which is a game that's come out recently on PlayStation Plus that's really blown up, I think, anyway, on the internet and on Twitch and on Twitter. There's a lot of chatter about Fall Guys, and we'll get into our experiences with that. But before we kick things off formally, I'm going to direct you towards patreon.com/idlegamechat and ask if you've got a spare couple of quid per month. How about you go on there, join one of our tiers and support us financially. If you can't do that or you don't want to do that, fuck you, but at least tell your mate that this is the number one sort of destination of video game podcasting. So maybe they'll put their hand in their pocket and show you up. Who knows? Fall Guys, Ultimate Knockout, Adcock. What are we doing with this one then? Because this is essentially a battle royale game. Really, like when you boil down to what the thing is, you start with 60 people and we get down to one winner. It's a battle royale game, but it doesn't feel or look like any battle royale game I've ever played.
Fortnite mixed with Tasheki's Castle, yes, or whatever it's called. What's the one with Amanda Holden with the big balls? Not sexual. It's not a sexual game.
I don't remember that. Well, wasn't it? It's a knockout.
Something like that, you know what? I don't know. Sort of Saturday night, you know, and they're always. I think it was filmed in like Argentina. It was Amanda. Brian was the host.
There wasn't Hamster in it. Top Gear.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I forget what it's called. Wipeout.
Total Wipeout.
Yeah, that's the one.
Next.
That's what it is. Exactly that. You basically play as a walk-in. What's it? I don't know what you call them. Looks like my little mate Ash on a night out. My mate said, and I was like, right, that is pretty much it, really.
Oh dear. And I guess the crux of it is that you start with 60 people, and rather than it being just one game like in Fortnite, in Warzone, you drop into one map and it ends when someone's the last man standing on that map or last team standing. But in Fall Guys, you actually go through several rounds. Now, I've not sussed out whether there's a set number of rounds or not. I think it's a little bit random and depends how many people fall out per round, but you can go anywhere between sort of 3 and maybe 6 rounds to get to like a final, and then when you're in the final, that's like your chance to win the show, as they call it, and get a crown, which you can use or show off, and that counts as a victory. But how have you found Fall Guys? Because it's been a bit of a sensation, blowing up on YouTube, blowing up on Twitch, blowing up on Twitter, blowing up on any social media platform. Like, it feels like they've hit a bit of a home run with this one, and the fact that it was on PlayStation Plus means that a lot of people have been able to try it with very little outlay financially.
Yeah, they've absolutely. I mean, I don't think they were expecting it to be this big, but
no.
I think when now you see it in hindsight, you look back and think, well, how's it taking this long for anyone to come up with this? Because it's a great format, like Last Man Standing, you know, is great. Battle Royale, it's all the rage at the moment. Like doing it as in like it's basically all done as like a TV show, in that it feels like a TV show. It's actually done like you're on a TV show as well, with like multiple rounds. It's super fun. It's surprising. Well, it's actually really frustrating. And it's quite hard. I haven't actually won a tournament yet. I've got to the last round. As you say, I'm not sure how that works, because I feel that when you there'll be most of the games as rounds as solo, but every now and again it will team you up in teams of 2 or 3.
That does.
It does me as well. Like we've either absolutely dominated or been dominated, and it's like, well, and then you have like a final round, which I'm guessing any of the rounds can be the final round, but
yeah.
Basically, I had this one where you're on like a honeycomb.
Yes.
And so I've had that a couple of times. But then I had the one where you've got to nick the tail as the last round, which annoyed me because I'm like, well, I can't run any. It's like it's not like Mario. I think that's where some of the balancing isn't quite right yet. Because from what I can gather, you don't run any faster than anyone, so it's really difficult to catch them. And some little rat got the tail in the last sort of 10 seconds, and he wins. And I'm like, well, what's that about? So. Yeah, but I mean, overall, I don't know how many different games there are. I think, 12 would be my guess, something like that. Maybe more, I don't know.
I mean, I've played maybe 4 or 5, maybe north of that, hours. But I already kind of know a lot of the games inside out. Like, it feels like there's a lot when you first start, but when you actually start playing the game, because it's so quick fire and you can go out quite quickly in a round, I guess you're playing through so many rounds even in just 1 hour, providing the servers are working, that you're rattling through these different types of games. And I'm actually not saying it's not got enough variety, but it sort of runs its course quite quickly, I found.
Yeah, I wonder now, because it says literally on the game and the title screen season 1, so I wonder if they're already now literally hiring people and powering up to get season 2 out and
add some new stuff and
double the size of it maybe, because I agree with you. And I mean, at the moment I find it fairly easy to get through the first. I'll tell you the one I really don't like is that one. It's a race to the finish. And it's like the slime's rising. I think it's the only one where that happens. Yeah. Fucking hard, that one is.
It is hard because in most of the games, like, it's a race. Like, a lot of them, there's like races, get from A to B, and there's loads of different like things in the way that can knock you off and slow you down and fuck you over, basically. Like, there's a seesaw one, I think, which is quite fun. You know, you can get really snarled up and costed in that. But in those, it feels like there's no timer to like get there. Whereas in the one that Adcock just mentioned, that there's a slime rising, meaning if you're too slow to get through the obstacle, you get caught in the slime and you're immediately eliminated. And in some ways, that is frustrating because you can go out quite easily and you think, well, in most of these games, I would have fancied myself to get back into it because there's always a chance of something going wrong for someone else, whereas this one just kills it off. So it is frustrating, but one of my frustrations is that I feel like I play too many rounds to get to a final, and that having more of these slime rounds where it eliminates quite a few people would be a way of sort of expediting that and maybe shortening the amount of rounds needed before you get to a final, because more people are going out.
It's a good point, because sometimes I feel like a lot of people must have been eliminated in this round. It goes like from 24 to 21. I'm like, right.
Well, I'll tell you another thing on that. I think some of that is that if you leave immediately when you're eliminated, it doesn't retain you on the screen. So I think what happens is a lot of people get eliminated at that screen, and actually there was 40 people.
Ah, right. Got you. So they're already gone and already excluded.
Yeah, which is a bit of an oversight, because I've done that and thought, what's the point in that round? 2 people have gone.
That makes more sense.
If you try and sort of remember how many people started it, you'll be like, actually there was 40 there. And so it goes from like reasonably easy to like just ludicrously not difficult, because everyone's in the same boat, but it's just a lot of luck. I find.
Yeah, absolutely.
Through. Like, I very rarely will go out in the first round. I think I may have only gone out once in the first round. I've played a fair few games, but once you're past that, it's kind of like anybody's game as to who's going to go out and who's going to stay in. And the finals, like you mentioned, there's a honeycomb one where you're standing on a platform, and there's loads of different like mini platforms. I think you can stay on the platform for about a second and then it disappears, and there's like 8 levels of this, so the key is not to fall all the way through to the bottom and have nothing left. I've got to that several times. I got down to the last one and die. That was frustrating. The tail one I had with 5 seconds left, but there's about 6 people in a melee, and it was just like everyone was just pressing R2 and it just popped out to some little rat and they run off and got it. I was about a metre away from there's like a dash up a hill, like I think it's called like Fall Mountain or something, and I was about a metre away from that, and some rat off the screen just jumped and got the crown, and I was like, right, where's he come from? I've been really like agonisingly close a few times and felt like I haven't really done much wrong there. So luck is definitely the order of the day. I mean, there is some skill to some of them, but ultimately you can get caught out because I don't think the controls are all that good. It doesn't feel the best game to play. And maybe intentionally it feels clumsy, so you're tripping over each other, I guess.
Yeah, I think that is intentional at the moment, but I also wonder, because I think this, like, I think maybe I did go out first, maybe early on a couple of times, but I totally agree with you. I can always, even if I kind of have a mare at the beginning, I can always work my way back in. Almost, every single time in the first round or two. And I wonder if that's because I'm playing against a load of people who are just logging on. You know, I'm imagining people are signing up all the time and downloading the game. It's free at the moment. And playing it. So I wonder, like, in a month from now, if it is still popular and people are good, like,
will it be impossible?
Yeah, or is that just the nature of the game? Is that what the game is? Is it a bit of luck in reality, and that it's not? I mean, I'm not saying it's not skill based, but if everyone's on an even peg, you know, it would then just be the luck of the day who gets them across the line, because the controls are a bit shit, and most of the games are sort of like, guess which, you know, you might have a game where you got to run to the finish and there's like 4 doors in a row, and 2 of the doors are fake doors and you can't get through, and 2 of the doors are real. So it really just becomes a bit of luck if you want to either hang back and try and capitalise on people's mistakes, or be a trailblazer and get absolutely stung if you get it wrong. So
there's some,
I don't know,
there's some poor ones in there as well. Like the one I keep thinking of is, like, I think it's called a logic game, and it's basically like there's a fruit shown on the screen.
I've only had that one like twice, weirdly.
And each of the platforms have like a fruit, like a unique fruit on it, and you have to remember where the fruits are, and they flash on and off, and then whatever's shown on the screen, you have to go to the platform that has that fruit. Like, that is just like tedious, I find, to go through. Because all you do is run to where everyone else is going. Yeah,
exactly. It gives you enough time to do exactly that as well.
Yeah. You'd be very unlucky. I've seen a few people get stunned off. I think people held them back. But they're not all home runs, and some do feel a little bit samey. How would you feel if they said... Because have you played this mainly just sort of solo, or have you done any online play, or even any sort of local play? I know some people have been doing like pass the controller around, which seems like quite a good way to play it multiplayer.
Yeah, no, purely at the moment solo. So I heard about it in the Dimp group first of all and kind of ignored it. Then, like in a friends group, someone sort of said, "Oh, what's this Fall Guys I keep hearing about?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I did hear about that in Dimp. What is it?" And then when I saw it was a free download, I was like, "Right, I'll have some of that." So I am scheduled to play some like co-op or in some sort of way, but I haven't yet. What about you?
No, all been solo. And the main reason I haven't gone down the route of sort of playing online with someone, because you can invite players into your lobby whilst you're queuing, is that I just don't like the idea of playing a game together where we can see each other, but we're not really working towards a goal together. And then say like one of us goes out in the first round, they then got to sit there and just watch you for like 4 rounds. And I can see, maybe it's just because I'm a bit impatient. Like if I went out, I'd be sitting there like, I wouldn't want you to win. I'd be like, no, come on, get off this. I want to play again. Like, and I can see that just not being a satisfying experience to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what first round to last round is probably 10 minutes. But yeah, I still get that you could go out in the first 1 minute and then have to sit there and wait for someone to get all the way to the end. That would be frustrating. And yeah, you're right. Like I don't think you can put, even if you've got 10 or 15 mates, you couldn't just have a invitation only game, could you? You'd only go into a...
They haven't got private...
I'm sure they'll work on that though, won't they? Having private servers.
Yeah, can you imagine like a big group like Easy Allies, like if they're doing like a stream, they could just invite like their patrons in, like, and have like a play of all like the people that are on there, or IGN could do like a stream, couldn't they, and be like, right, anyone who's signed up for our newsletter, you can come into our lobby, and they could set up like a private game just for like IGN, the staff and the players. That'd be quite cool. But I really think the thing I want them to have is a team-based setup where I can team up with you, and then me and you are playing as a pair in every round. And it's up to us as a team to get to the final, and if we win, we sort of get a crown each or whatever. That would be a good next step to introduce like cooperative play, because at present it's sort of like, oh, we're all in the same game, but we're not working with each other. And I think having some unique games set up just for like 2s and 3s or teams of 4s, like times, and maybe you could have like, I don't know, like 10 teams of 4 or whatever, and they get whittled down, have games set up around that. But I think that for me would be what I'd be looking at if I was looking at a roadmap for this. I would want to see that, because there's only so many times that you can sit there solo and play that and like not win. And then even if you do eventually win, I've got a feeling I'll be like, right, I'm done now. So it's kind of like one of those chicken and egg things. It's like, do I play this until I get the crown, or do I just assume I'm never going to get the crown, so I just bin it off? I'm kind of in that boat, sort of 6-7 hours in.
That's very true. I think all those things will come. Like, I think this game has really caught the makers by surprise how popular it is. And I think they'll be working hard now to try and make it more accessible and keep people coming back for more, because I totally agree. It's a bit like Tetris. What was it called on Switch? Tetris 99.
Oh, yeah.
Tetris 99. Yeah, I mean, I never got a win on that, to be honest. And I let my little Nintendo membership things like falter, because I was like, well, how often am I playing online Switch? Never, basically. So I never got that. But I don't have any kind of inkling to go back to it either. I'm like, and to be honest with that as well, because that's a fucking hard game to win. Had I ever won, I probably would have gone, right, quit while I'm ahead. I'm done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't know. I might. Yeah, I'll dabble back into it, and if they ever do like a team or a clan-based setup, I'm well up for going back in properly, like, and trying to get a win as a team, because you can sort of all bask in the glory. Make sure we get no stragglers, no weak sauce in there. Don't want anyone costing us on the final hurdle, do we?
Do not be getting me in then, because that will happen. But yeah, no, I agree. Basically, I think it's for me. I think where I've struggled to kind of find another game after like Last of Us, it has been that nice like palate cleanser. I'm like, I'll give this 20 minutes, it turns into an hour, and then I'm like, I'm done. Yeah. But yeah, I look forward to it. It's been a nice surprise, but yeah, I want to see it expanded a bit and see what they do with it, really. Yeah,
I'm going to withhold giving out a recommendation, because I don't feel I've played quite enough of it, and but I'd say, you know, verbally, that if you've got PS Plus, like, absolute no-brainer to get this. And then it's on Steam as well, so if you're on PC, I'd give it a go. Like, it's not going to break the bank, and if you like the idea of it or like the look of it, then, you know, you'll get a few hours of fun out of it for sure, and you can always check back in as and when they add stuff, providing they follow through and start building up this platform. Makes you wonder, like, if it wasn't on PS Plus, would it have got the traction it's got? Because it's just such an easy sell to get people to play, isn't it? It's like, just download it, and it's not a big download, and it's included in your membership. Like, whereas if you said, "Oh, buy that, it's 17 quid," would someone go, maybe I'll do it next week?
It's such a smart launch, to be fair. Like,
well, they make any money though. That's my worry.
Oh, mate, they will do down the line, though, wouldn't they? Oh, do you want to buy this skin?
You can buy stuff on it, to be fair.
Yeah. Oh, you can already. I mean, I'm assuming. I didn't know you could, but I knew you definitely would be able to, 100%.
Yeah. So I hope they put it. I think it's 16 UK pounds on Steam, so probably about right. Feels fair to me. Like, for what could be an endless, that could be, we could get like either 6 hours out of it, half a dozen hour, or 4 dozen hours, depending on how hooked you get.
That's very true. Yeah.
I think that's a decent price. Anyway, that's Fall Guys. Like, it is a sensation, and I'll be surprised if anyone who's got a Twitter account hasn't seen Fall Guys. Anyone listening to this would have, because they're probably following game people. But even people that aren't, I'm seeing like celebrities playing it, like sports people. Like, good job for getting this out. And to be fair, last E3 I saw this. I think I even posted it in that Dimp group saying this is like, looks like one to have an eye on. And I forgot it was even coming out. And then a week before, I kind of checked what Adkins has sent over. He's like in charge of sending over the Xbox Gold games or the PlayStation Plus games. And I was like, oh, fuck me, it's that game. It's Fall Guys. And blown up. So well done to the boys there. I want to chat about Carrion. Do you have any idea what this is?
No, I don't know what platform it's on. I literally, until you mentioned it then, I've never heard of Carrion.
So,
talk to me.
Platforms. Let's do that first. Steam. Xbox Game Pass. So your little ears are pricked up now.
Yeah.
It is a 2D Metroid. I hate using all these like descriptive words. Metroidvania. Reverse horror games is the common descriptor. You play as an organism. Don't know what it is. Like some blob of shit that you can you can fire out tentacles and grab people with, but you play as an organism that is seemingly escaped from your jar or whatever in a lab, in a research facility, and the aim of the game is for you to escape as this blob. And you do that by roaring around the different screens, eating people, growing, learning new skills, doing puzzles, and doing what you do to get out, whatever that entails to get out of a research facility, which is a lot of door openings.
It sounds like the final third of Inside.
Yeah, it is very much. I imagine there's some sort of influence there. In all honesty, so yeah, it's very simplistic. Like, it doesn't look anywhere near as nice as Inside. Like, and it's not a platformer. You're just like this blob on the screen. There's like really basic like levels, sort of 2D sprites, and you're not going to look at this and go, cool. You'll be like, right, that looks like a bit of a throwback, if I'm honest. But it's an interesting concept in that you're sort of sneaking around the facility, eating people, growing, and trying to escape. Because normally you're being hunted by the monster, or you're hunting a monster, whereas in this case you are the monster. So, off the back of that description, any opening questions?
Massively interested, because especially when you said Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah.
And anything that kind of even gives me slight Inside vibes, I'm on board for.
Yep.
So, is there much of a story, or is it like, how is it? And is there if there is, how is it told if you're a blob of tentacles?
That's the trouble they've got, is that it's not on a narrative level to Inside. It's kind of told in the same way, in that there's no direct storytelling. Like, things just sort of happen, and you do play through some flashbacks that kind of fill in the gaps, but other than that, there's no characters. Like, there's no like it's not even like a research facility head that you like see on the screen going, oh, the little shit's escaped, kill it. So it's not as though you're trying to hunt him or her down. There's zero characters in it, and to be honest, the narrative's probably the weakest part of it. You just know that you're trying to get out, and that by getting out, you have to, complete these puzzles, eat people, grow, learn new skills, and get out of the little shithole that you found yourself in.
Okay, like, how long is this game?
About 5-6 hours, so not long. Like, you probably do it in 4 actually, between 4 and 6. We'll go with that. So it doesn't outstay its welcome. Like, I think that's an important thing to call out in where many games do outstay their welcome these days. Half-Life Alyx coming up, on a different podcast. This is short and to the point, and is about the right length really for what it is.
Yeah.
So absolutely fine with the length. In fact, sort of applaud it for not going too far of it, because it got to the stage where I was a bit like, this is starting to wear thin, but I knew I was coming towards the end of it, so I was fine. I was like, I can just do this last half hour or whatever, and then I'm done. So
is it one continuous sort of like level, or is it broken up into like stages?
Or screens basically. So you'll sort of go off screen, it'll fade to black, and then I load up a new screen.
Okay.
So that's a little bit disappointing. And the other thing that I mentioned is a bit of a Metroidvania game. One of the key components of that is a useful map to figure out where you've gone, what you've bumped into, all that good stuff. This has no map, so you're doing it off memory. Ooh. Which at times you will get lost. And it's one of those things where people say, "Oh, you don't need a map." It's like, yeah, you don't need a map, but I would like a map still, because it makes my life just a little bit easier.
I'm going to be honest, I'm pretty poor even with the map.
You'll get lost.
Yeah, like Sarah sees me sometimes. She goes, "Why are you going back out to that room?" She's not even watching the game, like not even paying attention. I'm like, I'm heading over to that generator room. She's like, "Yeah, it's back the other way." And I'm like, wow. Yeah, so I'm
just
poor.
Based on that alone, I'd like to just hear your thoughts on this one day. Just see.
I'm going to play it for sure. Actually, it's definitely like piqued my interest. I'm on board for it. Yeah, especially the fact that it's free.
Yes. Last pitfall is I played this on PC, mouse and keyboard jobby, and I think it might be a bit clunky on a controller to control, because the way you move, you don't use like the analog sticks. You won't use the analog stick, to like move around, because you're like a blob. You don't have arms and legs. You sort of like I use the mouse to point where I want to go, right click, and it will sort of fire out a tentacle and like pull me towards it.
Got ya.
So I imagine on the controller you're going to do it with the right stick and then like hold R trigger. So it's not the end of the world, but you won't have the same precision. And surprisingly, like there's enemies there's research staff that you can just kill. They're just scientists, but there are like soldiers and guards on this, and they will rip through you if you let them. Like they will shoot the shit out of you, and you go down quite easily, even from like fully evolved status. Like it doesn't take a lot of shots to kill you, and sometimes you just need a bit of precision to balance on top of like a bit of the environment where they can't shoot you, and you can wait for them to turn around, drop down, and eat them or whatever. So I think
is it like a good balance between puzzles and action, or is it?
Yeah, there is. They don't like. If there was too much action in this game, it would definitely suffer. Like it would definitely be a bit of a grind. And there are some rooms that are like you get in there and you're like, fucking hell, how am I going to get through this? Because even though you are like, you still feel vulnerable. And I guess that's one of the other things that's a little bit of a stinker is that I kind of wanted to be just like God, like just to rip through like like Mr. X basically, like just tearing through anyone in my way, like full blown like fully evolved nemesis, just like but you actually feel quite vulnerable because you could die so quickly. And there's not only are there human enemies, there's also like robot enemies like sentries and things like that, which I just hate in games. I always remember in BioShock those little flying fuckers, and I used to really get on my tits. They did. So yeah, it's definitely not the perfect game, but as a game on Game Pass and something that I'd earmarked last year, I was pleased to see it came out this year because I wasn't expecting it. I was kind of like, oh, it's been silent for a while. It's really good to see that. And then Big Phil Spencer at Microsoft lands a deal that it appears on Game Pass. So I'm like, that's perfect for me because I probably would have bought it on Steam anyway. So that membership, again, paying dividends. I don't know how many times we have to say that on Idle Game Chat.
Nice. All right. Anything else to say before we thumbs it up?
Just that you learn new skills as you go through. The puzzles sometimes require you to devolve. So as you get bigger and you unlock new abilities, you kind of can get even bigger. But for some of the puzzles, you have to be a certain size. You have to be a bit smaller. So there are elements where you have to go into like a little pool and drop off a bit of your mass to go into that smaller size, which is quite good. And also they kind of, some people think this is a bit obvious, but they kind of like signpost it because there'll be like one of those little pools nearby. So if you're struggling, you might think, fuck, how do I get that? And then you'll be like, oh, if I just drop that off, okay, thank you. Right. And there doesn't appear to be any sort of like failure states where you can't progress if you've dropped off a bit and can't get back. So they've thought about all the different ramifications of changing your mass and increasing it and decreasing it. And I think overall it's a reasonably unique game. It's a bit clumsy at times, but a good fun experience for a few hours, and it's sort of like almost the perfect sort of Game Pass game for a weekend or for a couple of nights one week just to see off. So quite pleased to have got through it. Carry on. I will check it out. Yep. I will give it 1 thumbs up.
Cool. I mean, that's, again, what I expected from what you said. Nice one.
Excellent. Resident Evil 3. We've chatted about this. I chatted about it, but I'm not Mr. Resident Evil. You are. So I thought it'd be good just to sort of revisit this as briefly or as long as we want. There's no pressure here. We can do what we want. It's our show. But you've got through Resident Evil 3. I don't know if it was based on my review. I'm assuming it helped you make a decision. But how did you find Resident Evil 3?
I liked Resident Evil 3. Got it as a birthday gift, and I pretty much beat it within 2 or 3. It is fucking short, that game.
Brisk, isn't it?
Back. Yeah.
Moves you along quickly as well.
Yeah,
you're not in those sewers for more than half hour if you just do the tasks.
No, exactly. I think I beat it in probably half or just slightly half of what I'd done Resi 2 in both times. So it's I mean, not a shame because I enjoyed it. I mean, if I was a youngster and I could only afford this one game for a few months, I'd feel a bit hard done by, I think.
Do you not think, though, like, I was thinking about this the other day, funny enough. I think I don't really want to play Resident Evil 2 again, but I would consider playing Resident Evil 3 again because it's quite short. And it's a bit more like there's just puzzles in it, but I won't get stuck because it's sort of like moving you along, as I said, at a decent pace. I kind of think this actually, for replayability, might have just a slightly more enticing structure to me personally.
I would 100% agree. I think as well, because obviously like those proper survival horror games, they're brilliant, but they're also very stressful. You know, like when you get to your save and you've done an hour and a half or you've done whatever you were aiming to do in your own brain, you're like, right, I can switch this off now. You do kind of think, thank fuck for that. Whereas this, I mean, it is survival horror, but there's a lot of ammo, isn't there? Like, you never feel too underprepared, and also like there's a lot of like hard cut-offs where you're done with an area, you can't go back. You'll only be in one location probably for like an hour and a half, and then it just moves you along, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm done with this now, so I can relax. It starts again. So yeah, I do, completely agree with that. I think it's pretty obvious in hindsight. I keep saying that, but this was probably meant to be made or considered at one point to go in a package with Resi 2.
Oh yeah.
I think the big downside, unfortunately, I think you mentioned this, is that they nailed the kind of roaming ultimate bad guy in Resi 2. The Nemesis should be better, but he's just not like in any way really. He's just like, he's bigger for sure, and he's able to do more things, but he's so scripted. And I've played this on the OG PlayStation, and I really enjoyed it. I can't, to be honest, I can't really remember it, but at least in my like young brain, it didn't feel as scripted as this. I mean, I'm sure it was. It just didn't feel the same way. Maybe I just didn't know, 3D games like I do now, and how things work as much. But so he's really he's uncomparable to Mr. X. It's not the same deal at all. Like, Mr. X could come up at any point. You was always a bit worried about him. Those footsteps stomping around would fucking shit you up from doing whatever you were doing. This is completely different. So he's very like underwhelming compared to that. He's just literally a boss character, I would say. And then because he's a boss character, he's like pretty much the only boss you ever fight, which again, true. I can't remember, but from reading reviews from people who do remember, like, they've actually stripped out a couple of the other bosses that were in the original game. I'm interested. I'd like to just listen. I don't care particularly, but I'd be interested to know why they like made the choices they made with this. It's not like they were, in a rush, or someone was getting sacked Kojima style. So I'm just wondering why they decided to make the game it's half as long.
I've always wondered this. Like, since they announced the Resident Evil 2 remake, I was a bit like, what about Resident Evil? Because it was clear that, I know it's already been remade once, but it was clear that these two play nothing like even the remake on GameCube. Like, they don't have any tank controls. It's a modernised version and reimagining of Resident Evil 2 and 3, whereas I find, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, because I've never played enough of them, but I find that the remake of 1 is just like an enhanced version of that first game, retaining a lot of the mechanics and adding a few bits here and there, and obviously make it look a lot nicer, but the game still plays very much the same. Like, it feels like a piece of art from its time, whereas these two are modernised, sort of this gen. You would put anybody in front of that and they'd say, that was made in the PS4, Xbox 360 era.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like a 1.5, that original GameCube remake. There's massive like story, there's extra characters added, extra enemies, like as in like big enemies with story arcs, and like things that are like mixed. Shark's always in there, actually. Yeah, Jaws. Yeah, he was in the original. I think this is a sort of mother shark. Basically, in the first one, you'd walk in the room and you could get eaten if you hung around. Right. In this one, you could get eaten, but then when you get down a layer, there's like the big mama sort of tries to ram through like the glass and kill you. Sort of like Jaws 3, 3D. So that's get that in VR, they say. Oh, God. And then and it was a bit of a remix, and there was like Crimson Head zombies that would come back to life if you didn't burn them and be like twice as hard. So it was definitely an upgrade. I just don't think they had a better version of the tank control still. So controlling wise and everything like that was still rooted in that original. And obviously now, speaking to you, it's near on impossible to play as a modern gamer.
It's not, but I'll just
struggling.
Patience. Like I said, I want you to go back and play that.
It's not going to happen now. You fucking soured me on it, so I'll leave it in my brain where it's lovely.
What do you think? What do you think? You mentioned that Nemesis is pretty much the only boss. What do you think of the encounters you had with Nemesis? I kind of quite like them. They felt like highlights to me. The encounters that you have with him, and you see him change throughout the game from like looking like a bit like Mr. X, is like typical Resident Evil blob. As we get to.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I always found this on like Resident Evil. Like, he's never normally completely clear to me at first what I'm meant to do to beat him, because you can end up wasting loads of bullets, and then you're like,
and the worst case scenario is that you waste a load of bullets and then just scrape through and leave yourself really compromised for the next section of the game. You're better off just dying once you sussed it and going, right, I'll be using these. I think I was using those trip mines incorrectly for ages on one encounter, and I was like, oh, you idiot.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% agree with that, because it's normally always like something to do with the environment you need to kind of harness, and if you fucking just waste a load of bullets on them, then realise, as you say, just fucking call it a day and start again. Although it checkpoints in really weird places, you always have to watch the cutscene again. That annoyed me. I was like, right,
mate, that is a pet peeve of mine. I really hate it when games do that. I mean, fortunately, I didn't have too many struggles. But some of them are like a few minutes long. And I'm always one of those people that hates skipping the cutscene, even if I've seen it. But even if you don't like doing that and you like skipping it, why is it there?
I wonder if it's so you can go back to your save box and, like, if you fucked it that way, maybe there is some sort of method to the madness. I don't know. But you could just reload your last save if that's the case, I guess. So, don't really know what they're doing. But they're all, they're unique, all the encounters, to be fair. Like, very different from each other. And they're quite creative, some of them. I enjoyed him. I thought in that respect he was fine. It's just after dealing with because obviously in 2 you've got Mr. X stomping around, but you've got all your traditional baddies as well. So it just makes it's just, I think what you said about it is all true, and what everyone kind of said. It's just weirdly, if this one had come out first and 2 was then the successor, you'd be like, they've improved it in every way. Whereas this one, they've just, it just feels a little bit stripped back. It's just strange, basically, because it's nice. And like the other thing I think I said to you at the time, I didn't realise how, again, I think there was a massive gap between me playing OG 2 and 3, so I just didn't realise how interconnected they are. Like, there's some really nice little throwbacks, like the fact that you kill like the policeman or the zombie that bites the policeman or whatever, and you're like, oh, right, sweet, and that's where that pass comes from. Now I'm back in the police station. Like, it all just it connects really well.
I think I guess the reason it got dinged first of all was that it was so soon after 2, and it, in hindsight, maybe was priced not appropriately, because it was a day one sort of 45 quid jobby, which was steep. And I think you mentioned that last time and asked me, and I was like, it probably kind of is. Yeah,
I agree with that as well. Yeah, I mean,
Did you notice that there's, and this is, we're talking like minor spoiler things here. This is something that happens very early in the game. There's an enemy type. It's a zombie, but it's like the parasite zombies that pop up. They can like sting you from range. The rumour is that is there to link in to the Las Plagas parasite from Resi 4, maybe. So, are we going to get that continued universe? I know we've discussed it before, but just a little nugget for people that perhaps weren't sure what the reference was. But
so, were they not in the original 3 then? Have they added those in?
I don't think so. Yeah,
I think I read in the game there's like a file or something that mentions something about the European base of like
site. Yes, there is, because there's a guy from one of the European sites that's like, you lot aren't doing enough. Like, you're not pushing the envelope enough, and it's made out that the European bases of Umbrella are like unhinged almost. They're like really pushing the limits on what's acceptable, and even like some of the shitty US ones who've done some pretty terrible stuff are a bit like, rein it in, mate. Like, that's a bit far. Fucking about with parasites or beaters and
that's it. Yeah,
it's really good. I enjoy those little bits that you pick up for that. Mate, it's like one of the few games where reading the notes is worthwhile in a lot of cases. Like, they're not too long, they're not a pain in the arse, and you do find out little nuggets like that in there, and you're like, cool, is that setting something up, or is it
it's not
the originals?
I totally agree. I've always liked that in the Resident Evil games, because normally the payoff, if they are setting something up, it's just around the corner. It's like pretty sweet. It gears you up nicely, and you're like, cool, I'm going to be seeing this new enemy now. What's it going to be? I also like that bit. It's again a bit like a tying in where you meet the guy in the gun shop who's got the little girl in the room. You're like, well, that doesn't end well in Resident Evil 2. So
we know that's going.
But it's really nice. I just forgot about all of that, and I was like, I'm really glad I've played this. So I did, like, as a Resident Evil fan, and if you can pick up the game cheap, it's a must play. But I do also I think all the criticism it got is all deserved as well.
I agree with that. What would you give it on the old thumbs up, thumbs down rating?
I mean, I'd give Resi 2 2 thumbs up, so I'd give this 1 thumbs up.
agree with that. Infamous First Light is next to me. This is a very old video game. People are like, what the fuck's that? Infamous First Light was a standalone spin-off / downloadable content extra for Infamous Second Son. It released in August 2014, so later on the original release of Second Son. I used this game as a transition / bridge game after The Last of Us Part 2. Now, Akins certainly feels this, and we've mentioned it a couple of times on various podcasts, but sometimes when you play like a really good to great video game, like it's hard to get any sort of motivation to play anything else because it doesn't feel up to standard. And I was struggling with that a little bit after The Last of Us Part 2. I thought, you know what, I've got Infamous First Light sitting there. I know it's like 5 hours long tops. It's a little spin-off. It's a spin-off and a DLC add-on of the first game I got on PS4. It's Sucker Punch, who have just released Ghost of Tsushima, so it'd be nice to sort of go back and compare some of their work from then. Let's dive in and just do this. So I jumped into Infamous First Light, and in all honesty, it's not very good. But it was a good transition game to sort of just cleanse my palate before some of the bigger titles were coming down later this year. But I don't know if you've got any questions on this. Really, I don't think you've played Infamous.
I have. All I know is I remember this was one of the first games that come out on PlayStation 4, right? Like.
Yeah, I think it was like March it come out.
And it was 15?
Yeah, it was like March 2014, I believe, and the consoles have come out November, October time. So it's in the launch window, as they like to say these days. Like, is it coming out at launch? Well, it's in the window. It's like, well, is it there day one when I pick it up from game? Nope. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, how does it look? Is my first question. Because I played about 3 hours of Alien Isolation. Yeah. And I'm sure it's a great game, but the first thing I just couldn't believe how bad it looks. Like the character models. No, I know that's probably. I mean, the environment all brilliant, but just like when I looked at like the facial, the models, I was like, Jesus, we've come a long way. Yeah. Because that was cross-gen though, wasn't it? So I mean,
yeah, it's the same with First Light. Like. The environments look quite nice, but then when I compare it to Ghost of Tsushima, it's like it's different. It looks like a different console.
Yeah,
playing it on like it's not. It's the same development. This is the crazy thing. It's the same development team on the same hardware. Okay, I've got a Pro. Okay, so it will look a little bit better, but even without that, 99% confident that it's going to look like a night and day almost. And yeah, and the biggest takeaway is this feels like an early generation game. And you kind of lose sight of that as you play games and, only play the stuff that's coming out that year. You play it, put it away, finish it, blah, blah, move on to the next thing. It is eye-opening when you go back to a game like this because it just feels a little bit old already, which is an incredible thing to say. It's been 6 years, granted, but again, we're still in the same generation and already it feels almost last gen, which is crazy, really. I think there is like a transition between new generation and old generation where you kind of get everything feels at the peak of the last generation will feel just as good on the new generation, but then you're waiting for that next stage of when next gen takes over and things start feeling like the PS5. They'll feel different. I imagine
100%. Yeah,
the first few games are going to feel like, because we feel like we've kind of peaking here with some of the games like Last of Us Part 2, for example, and other stuff.
I feel like this has been the case with the last couple of generations, hasn't it? There's like the last year of games that come out on last gen and this gen
are nearly always better than all the launch stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Without fail. And it takes a while for something to come along and you're like, okay. And then the worry is when the next gen comes out, hopefully this time will be different, but they're almost like the best looking games tend to be like those kind of almost tech demo games. I forget. Do you remember that one that was on PS4? That steampunk one. Do you remember that? Killzone?
No.
The Order 18.
87 or whatever. That one.
Didn't even come out on release. That's what killed that off. That came out. Let me just look that up because I remember that being. I was not defending it because I didn't think much of it, but I felt sorry for it because it came out in 2015. So 2013 the consoles come out. So it's about 18 months. It was early 2015. Cool. But had that come out at launch, it would have felt fine because it was like, okay, it's kind of what we're expecting. But already by 2015, loads of stuff has surpassed it, and it felt really poor, like just really basic. And this feels like that. I mean, it's a side story of one of the characters in the main game called Fetch. It's fine. Like one of the great things about Infamous Second Son, and I bet if I went back and played that, it'd be an eye opener. But you can use several different powers, like a handful of powers. In this, you're restricted to only what Fetch has got, which is like neon power, which is basically like you can move at the speed of light and bits like that. So you're kind of losing one of the great things about Second Son in that you can only use one set of power. Sure, you get a few more special abilities and abilities that you don't get in the original game, but that doesn't replace being able to like switch up your powers mid battle and really like mix things up. So it kind of suffers from that. The story is just fucking throwaway toot, really. It's like it's like, oh, this is the origin stories of Fetch, and it's like, I've forgotten who Fetch was. I don't care. It's one of those games that really I should have played back in the day. It's a real lesson in that if you've got a bit of DLC for a game you enjoyed and it's sitting there, just play it. Don't wait until the end of the generation and then try and play it, because ultimately it just won't stack up. So based on that, I'll give it unfairly, in many people's eyes, 1 thumb down.
Cool.
Not worth the time, really. I'd rather play Carrion again.
Yeah.
And that's what it's up against. Same sort of length, far smaller budget, and yet Carrion's coming out on top. I'd rather play Resident Evil 3 through again. I've probably played that game. That's that's what we're getting to, unfortunately. I've got on here mobile game. I've forgotten to write down what the name of it is.
The Curse of Ilios.
The Curse
Fantastic.
of Ilios.
Yeah.
What are we doing with
I don't know
this
if that's how it's pronounced, if I'm honest, but that's what I'm going with.
Curse of Ilios, talk to me. So what it's set, because we don't do a lot of mobile games here, and people don't seem to play Clash of Clans anymore, so it's rare to see this.
So this is by Abbey Light Studios. They're big, right?
Well, I guess so.
I've heard of them. So they're here. They're on. They're making games. I don't really know how I picked up with this on Twitter, something from the developers, and I was like, right, what is this? Basically, as a kid, I'm a bit older than you. I don't, to be honest, this is like my apps Adcock. This makes no sense. But my favourite films were like films from like the 60s, like Jason and the Argonauts. Do you ever see that film?
Yep.
No, oh come on, mate. And then do you know they've got the stop motion guy like Harry Hassan or whatever his name is, made like the Sinbad movies, Clash of the Titans, Jason and the Argonauts.
Yep.
You don't know any of this, do you? Oh my god, mate! I'm going to educate you. You're coming around Saturday, marathon time. Okay, gonna back to back some of the best.
Grease 2 on and be done with it. It's better last time.
Basically, I used to love like anything that was like Greek mythology, and this guy was like famous for like making movies where you had like a hero, he'd have to go and do like some mythical quest, and there was like all those famous monsters from Greek mythology, and he would like stop motion these monsters. He's super famous and like, well, for old people, and pretty amazing. I'll send you some links on YouTube. There's some really good stuff.
Yeah,
and this game is exactly that. Well, do you know what? It combines that, my love of like Greek mythology, with that sort of like retro head gamer of like the 8-bit worlds. It's an 8-bit game.
Yeah.
If this game had come out when I was 10 years old, it would 100% be my favourite game of all time. It's like, it's full like 8-bit visuals, 8-bit hardness. It's probably 7 or 8 levels. They're really short, but you know, they're really fucking hard as well. There's a tiny bit of Metroidvania vibes where like some levels will be just left through right with a boss at the end. Some will be like left through right, but there'll be a up section, down section, lowest, like 3 levels. You have to collect 3 keys.
Mate,
so it's pretty.
I'm looking at a video of it. It looks, yeah, you're right. It does look like a throwback of like.
Yeah, so it's pretty simplistic, but like loving those films. Like they've got all the sort of like major stop motion bad, like Medusa's in there. This big, like, I don't know if you've seen him, the geezer called Talos who chases you across the level. He's like a big statue that comes to life.
Right.
Like they really sort of mined those favourite films from the sort of 60s, 70s, 80s and turned it into a video game. And to be honest, like basically I saw it coming out, so I pre-ordered it and got a little notification a couple of months.
On the app,
just on the App Store. I didn't even know you could do it. It just said come in like whenever, like June 12th or whatever. And then on the day, I was like, forgot all about it. It's like, yep, the game's installed and on my phone. It's like, right. So I mean, to be honest, it controls like a fucking bit of garbage because you got that on-screen, you know, pad mimic. So
they've not figured out anything else yet for that.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure you can nowadays plug in a proper controller to your phone. I mean, an Android, at least I've got iPhone, so I don't know how that works, and I didn't bother researching it. But I'm sure you can do it a better way, and I think it is out on some I don't know where it's out on actually, but if it's out on
you
the console,
found it on the App
that.
Store.
Oh, I found it on the App Store, and as far as I know, that's the only place you can do it. But maybe it's available on Steam, perhaps, which would be a much better way to play it. Mouse, keyboard, some sort of controller. Anything would be better than a.
Apparently, I can download it now for free. It's freeware.
Oh, there you go. I'd say get it because it's just like, I mean, maybe it appeals to me because of that like nostalgia.
Yeah, mate,
But
look at the features. Look at this little rundown. Look and feel of a console game from 1987/88. It's a very specific timeline there.
Very specific.
Didn't like extend it into the 90s. I was like, no, once it gets to 88, so that's that. Based on Greek mythology, 7 levels, 9 bosses, and more than 40 unique enemies. A secret level, one if you got this, that can change the curse of the game. Jesus, around 45 minutes of game length once fully mastered.
That's it. That literally
is that correct? 45 minutes, Jobby, and
if you mate, it took me about 9 hours, but yeah, 45 minutes. It's fucking hard, mate. But yeah, it is about that. It's kind of done in the Ghouls and Ghosts and Goblins deal. So you've got armor, or you can get armor. If you get hit once, you're down to like your pants essentially. If you get hit again, you're pretty much dead. So it's fucking hard. It is. I know there is like life, but yeah, the armor just saves you. It gives you an extra boost. But it's really smart in that they've done some nice things. Like obviously, you know, on that retro feel, which they didn't kind of do back in the day. So you have got like a sort of Mr. X, that level where you got the big statue chasing after you the whole way. Nice. When you fight Medusa, like she'll do this thing where she turns you to stone. So you've got to be really careful and like make sure your back's turned to her. So there's some clever little gimmicks. I mean, obviously we're in 2020, so they're not really that clever. But, you know, just like riffing on what they would have been able to do back then, they've kind of just improved on it all. And there is like a little very, you know, vague storyline, this little boss run at the end that made it really fucking hard doing the last level. But I was like absolutely pleasantly surprised. It was like the most video gamey game that I've played on mobile, you know, in its like structure. It was just, here's your levels, here's your bosses. There's no in-game purchases. It ain't fucking a watered down version of something on consoles. It isn't something that's got like 1,000 microtransactions in it or whatever, or, you know, just slashing the screen. It was like a proper video game. And I loved it. Really good. I'd probably give it 2 thumbs up for what it is. Like, you can get it for free. I think I paid £1.50, I think, and it was worth every penny. Kept me going. I'd play it for like an hour before bed. Probably beat it over a fortnight. Nice. Well, there you go. Like, if people want it, you can go to locomaltio.com, which is like the developer's name. Just put in Curse of Ios and you'll be able to find it. And you can download it on there, or as Adcock just said, you can get it on the App Store as well for £1.50. Influences this movie, influences the movies of special effects from Ray Harryhausen and 8-bit games like Vampire Killer, Rastan, Ryga 8, 8 Eyes, or Ninja Gaiden. You know, the only one I've heard of is Ninja Gaiden, but I'd say it riffs on pretty much every 8-bit video game that ever came out, really. An epic quest of a fisherman to save his daughter. There you go. Didn't save her though. She fucking died. That's the problem. Didn't get that secret level, and I ain't going back through that fucking. It'll be like those gems off of like Sonic that you had to get. You had to get on those like, bonus levels, and if you didn't get it, like it's like, well, try again next time. It's like, yeah, but I stopped the cunt. Like, no, let's try again next time. I was like, yeah, fucking. I got fucking Talos chasing me. I ain't got time to be looking for no gems, mate. Just getting through it's hard enough. Deary me. Right, I'm gonna do one more game because I have just finished it. In the last day or so. We spoke about it the other week. It's Ghost of Tsushima. I've got to the end credits. I really wanted to quickly just give it a quick once over and just say impressed, beautiful game. Does some really cool things that other open world games don't do in terms of like its waypointing system. Combat's really good. Has some pitfalls in that it falls into the same sort of open world game sort of traps in that you pick up stuff
that you get copies of, and then I can't sell them. I've got this, you get like charms that you can like but boost your skills or buff your skills with, and you get like 2 versions of it, and it does the same. And I'm like, okay, I'm assuming I can sell that, and you can't. So I was like, right, what's that all about? And there's just far too much like discovery stuff for you to do, like reasonably. But overall, impressed with Ghost of Tsushima, and I'll give it 1 thumb up for any of those that are still on the fence. I don't know if you had any questions about.
Yeah, funnily enough, I literally, before we got on to record this, I was listening to Dimp and I was listening to you and Adkins talk about it, and you were saying that you had just kind of burnt yourself out by sort of putting too much into it in the first third, and you were then sort of gone a bit stale on it. So once you got back into it, you did, I guess you just mainlined it a bit more, and
absolutely. I just sort of
realised where you went wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same thing I do every time. Like, I don't know why I do it to myself. If I just do a nice mix of mainline and side quests and other like stuff like discovery bits, normally that's like the perfect route through, but for some reason I was like,
it's the app's brain though, isn't it? You don't want to miss out.
Wanted to clear down an entire region at least once, and that was like took like 2 weeks nearly of me playing it like little bits now and again. And then Act 2 I really dragged out, but when I got to like Act 3 I was like, right, mainline it. And as with most open world games, you can go back after the credits and do the other stuff. So I plan to go back and do some of that other stuff. And what's really cool actually is that there was some side quests that I had left unfinished. Basically, I hadn't finished them off. And at the end, a character come up to me, and your character says to another one, says, "Oh, what's Misakio up to?" And they're like, "Oh, they're still waiting for you to go and sort that issue out." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll go and do that." I kind of liked that it just at least addressed the fact that I'd ignored that quest for a while, like sorted out the big problem, and now I can go back and those guys are still not going to be like, "Oi," because sometimes like you do stuff after you finish the game and you're like, well, chronologically that doesn't make sense because that couldn't have happened, but just a tiny little small detail like that, and I was like, that makes me actually want to now go back and do those because it makes sense in this playthrough I've done that I've finished off my main task and now I can go and help these people out.
Perfect. Nice.
1 thumb up, Ghost of Tsushima. Well, there we go. We got in quite a few games on that session. I hope you enjoyed the episode. We will be back Monday. We don't air an episode on bank holidays, and I feel like we've got one coming up. So
end of August we have.
End of August. So this will make the grade, but we'll be missing one in a couple of weeks because I have a little week off. So if we don't, I'll make sure I communicate it. But again, if you've got this far, thanks very much for listening. We'll bid you adieu, and thanks for your time, and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.